Hopefully this camera's gonna work long enough. I don't understand why I keep shutting it off. Goats are being ding dongs. Now, let's get some more voices out, shall we? Oh, I just had a whole bunch. This is titled Things My Dad Taught Me. Hi, Steve Jason again. I last encountered one of these things I would have to say was the one that most influenced what I think about them. I've written about Wagner Gulch before and when I lived in Great Falls, Montana. Oh God. It was one of my favorite places to spend time in the outdoors. Driving south out of Great Falls, you take Lower River Road to the Eden Road, then Lineshire Road, and take the Wagner Gulch Forest Service Road onto the National Forest there at East Helena, Montana. On the way there, there's a small creek that during November is a spawning stream for brook trout, and I had permission from the ranch there to fish the creek, as I had stopped one time on the way out to help the rancher and his wife pull a calf. The cow had been down for several hours from the looks of the area, and the calf was stillborn, and he was breech and stuck. It took a week to get the smell of blood and albumin and birth fluid off my arms. He was generous enough to offer me money for helping him. Get out of here. I need him knocking over this camera. But I'd rather have, okay, hold on a minute. You little bastards. All right, we just evicted him. Made too much noise out there. He was generous enough to offer me money for helping him, but I told him I'd rather have his permission to fish Castle Creek if he'd allow that. He wrote me a permanent pass to show anyone that had his permission to do so anytime I wanted. I could pull 2 and 3 pound brookies out of that stream all day long when they were running. It was so much fun. That sounds like a frickin' hoot. One weekend, my usual hunting and fishing buddies had gotten tied into going to their aunt's wedding, and I was by myself for a change. I'd already tagged out on deer, elk, and antelope, so when the 1st November rolled around, I had nothing to do. I decided I would drive out to Castle Creek and catch me a few brookies for dinner. I got to the bridge, parked the truck, clipped on my bear spray, holstered my .41 mag, and headed down the creek from Lineshire Road. Now, once you get about 3/4 of a mile from that road, Castle Creek begins to create the most amazing pools you can imagine. It is all limestone benches in the area, and the creek cuts right through them. It has gentle sloping chutes going down the face of the limestone and creates nice deep pools at the top of the next bench before forming another rapid chute down the next outcropping. Incredible fly fishing pools for cutthroat and brook trout. As you get further down the creek bed, close to the Smith River, it hits wide open flats and has beaver dams, it seems like, about every 200 or 300 yards. Back then, the rancher used to blow those about every 3 years because it would start to flood his hay fields. He had the best hay I had ever fed to. All natural Timothy grass overseeded with alfalfa and Italian rye. My horses loved it. He would sell it as much as I wanted to, so I was grateful for that. Anyway, I got into fishing more than anything. I was having a blast that day. November 8th, 1981, I hiked pretty much right to the edge of the hay meadows, and there were low land alder bushes everywhere, about 13 feet high along the creek, right to the edge of those fields. I was having a great day. I probably caught at least 100 fish, and it seemed like no matter what I used, they were biting it. I had a nice brook trout hooked and was trying to work him to the shore when it all changed. I noticed the birds dive into the trees, and it got that dead quiet you just dread. And I knew there had to be one in the area. Our winter snows had not hit yet that year, so no way to know what the heck was going on anywhere because there's no way to track it. I finally got that trout caught, quickly unhooked it, let it go, and broke down my rod so I could put it in my pack and get out of there. I looped back through the alders and headed back upstream toward the last drop of the creek. I was planning in getting back to the truck as fast as I could. Once I got to the base of that first outcropping, I pushed through the older bushes and was planning on using the creek bed all the way back as it was the fastest path through there. As I popped out of the alder at the top of the pool, one of them popped out on the other side of the creek directly across from me. We both about jumped out of our skin. I said out loud, "Ah, shit!" And I'm pretty sure he said the same thing in whatever language they speak, and both of us spun 180 degrees and blasted back through the alder. I got to the border of the bushes and turned right downstream and ran like heck for 75 yards. Saw a game trail back in the alder and took it. I was still moving pretty hard and loud as I popped out of the creek. Guess who did the same thing again on the other side of the creek? Yup, we both skidded to a stop, and the look it gave me was obviously human. It was one of those, "What the hell are you doing" looks, and "Why can't you leave me the hell alone?" I didn't even blink and spun around and headed right back to the edge of the alder and turned upstream this time and ran till I hit my old trail coming out, and I turned in toward the creek again so I could get the heck out of there. Well, guess what? So did he. We met at the creek again, and I yelled, "What the F, dude?" as loud as I could, right at him. Steve, the look he gave me almost made me start laughing. Picture this, 7 foot tall, 350-pound hairy giant standing facing me with his hands on his hips, his jaw hanging open, this look of, "Why the hell are you yelling at me? This is your dang fault," look staring back at me. Wow. I was so shocked at the humanity of that gesture, I could only think of the chance I had passed up to shoot one and silently said, "Thank goodness I had not." It was wild. It took me, I'm guessing, about 30 seconds to think all those thoughts because I started to spin around again, but it waved at me. Not like a, say, highway, but urgent like, "Hey, wait a second." Then, just like the female up in the Bob Marshall wilderness, he pointed at his chest and pointed downstream. Then he pointed at me and fully extended his arm upstream the direction I wanted to go anyway. He even flicked his hand with his pointer finger extended like he was saying, "Okay, jackass, I mean it. You go that way." I was sweating profusely and breathing pretty hard, but the absolute ridiculousness of that moment was burned in my memory. Then his eyes started to glow green, and he turned and shot back into the trees, and I ran and trotted the 9+ miles back to the truck. I have no clue how long I sat behind the wheel, and was, I guess, still in shock, because when I finally realized I was behind the steering wheel, it was dark. I told my dad about the encounter, and he laughed hysterically and told me if I had done that to him the third time we ran into each other, he would have started throwing rocks. I asked him, "Dad, why did its eyes turn green and glow?" He got serious real fast and just looked at me, and as he pulled out one of his non-filter Camels and lit it, he asked me, "Son, when you see night vision pictures, what is the overall color of everything?" I said, "Green." He looked at me again and said, "When you see infrared anything, what color is that?" I said, "Red." He shrugged his shoulders and said, "You do the math." I've never forgotten that, and I think that is why sometimes their eye shine is green and sometimes it is red. I think it depends on what spectrum of light they are choosing to see at the time. I asked my pops about it, and he asked me if I seriously thought people just had dreams of things like night vision goggles, infrared technology, and just built them from scratch, with no example of how that would work. He then asked me if I like getting cockleburrs stuck in my clothes. I told him, of course not. Dad, things stick to you, and before I could say glue, he said Velcro. That little comment shocked me because it was 100% accurate. Then he said, "Son, understand there are extremely few original ideas that have been patented. Each and every one of them at some point in the past was observed somewhere else." At point blank, I asked him, "Dad, how long have you known about these things, and what the hell are they?" He just looked at me and said, "I can't tell you, son, that's classified information." That was my last encounter with one of these things, and one of the most enlightening conversations I remember with my dad. Sorry for the length of the letter, Steve, but Lord have mercy, does it feel good to get that off my mind. Thank you again for the safe haven of the round table of knowledge, and may all of us understand the significance of participating here. Thank you. Good hunting, my friend, and always watch your six out there, John. John, that was one hell of an email, and that's one of the most incredible experiences we've had shared here with all the people. One of them. We've had a lot. That's a frickin'. What a frickin' experience, man. And there's another one, your father. I'm only gonna say so much. Call it classified. Damn it. You know, especially today with the shit that's going on, the blatant examples of how we are absolutely misled and lied to. You'd think by now, the men and women who took oaths start questioning what they took the oaths for today. You know, you think that'd be enough. What's going on today, what's happening to the people, you would think that might be enough for them to just cut loose and share the frickin' knowledge with us. You know what I mean? Unless the powers that be are absolutely that scary to them. I wouldn't imagine, maybe they are, right? With the blatant things they're doing, especially in my country right now. My country's absolutely falling apart, believe it or not. Unless you have your head in the sand, then everything's apparently normal. I closed the garage door just enough the little buggers can't get in, so they're crying their eyes out, thinking they're missing out on something. Here's another one. What do we got? And for all you guys wondering where the Rumble channel is, I think it's called ProGuide66, and I haven't put a video on the Rumble yet. Okay, I'm going to. It's not even made yet, just so you guys know. So don't panic. You're not missing out on anything yet. All right. My lone experience. The title of this one. Hello, Steve. My name is Ron. I'm in my 70s now. I didn't think I would ever do this, but here I am. Many, many years ago, possibly 25 or 30, my father and myself were on our annual camping/hunting trip. About 20 miles away from Monitor Pass/Markleville on US 395 in California. We're camping at the same place we have been every year for 5 years. My dad knew the owner of this property and we had permission to be there. We had never had a weird experience there until this last year. My dad and myself were asleep in the camper until 2:33 in the morning when he got out of bed and he said he had the call of the wild, so he headed for the designated tree and that was it. I was awake. So I got up and went out into our camp, set up the table, started the coffee. I looked out at the tree my dad was leaning up against, noticing a movement beyond his tree. I looked past his tree on one side and I looked and it was a black bear. This was no cub but a full-grown 300-pound bear. I wasn't absolutely positive, but it sure appeared like that. So I got my binoculars and was looking over there. My dad saw what I was doing, started yelling at me, "What are you doing?" I told him not to worry about it, just be quiet. He went back to his business. I put the binoculars away, got my rifle out. A 7.65 Argentine Mauser with a light scope on it. I settled in on the edge of the camp. I looked in the scope on my rifle. My dad looked up and saw what I was doing and started yelling at me again, "What are you doing?" I didn't say anything, and he didn't say any more. And while I was looking at the bear in my scope, the bear started moving, but the funny thing was he was moving up. I followed him up with my rifle. It rose almost 4 feet off the ground, and there's something had a hold of him. I took my eyes away from the scope and looked out past my dad, and there was a Sasquatch was standing there. He had the bear by the nape of the neck and the butt and was holding him up. The bear was squirming. Holy shit. And all I could think of was that if this thing gets loose, he's gonna go after my dad. He's about 10 feet from him. So a moment later, the back end of the bear dropped down, so I pulled the trigger and I put that bear out of his misery. What? The Sasquatch dropped right there. Of course, the gunshot startled my dad, and he finished very quickly and turned to look around the tree and saw what I was looking at, and immediately came over to camp. He had been about 45 feet away, so it only took him a moment. As soon as he got into camp, he turned and looked, and we both watched that Sasquatch turn and walk away quickly, much quicker than we thought he'd be able to. My dad and myself walked over to inspect the bear and confirmed that he was dead. And then Dad and myself went over to inspect the bear and confirmed that he was dead, and it was. As near as we can tell from the low-hanging branches was that the Sasquatch had been 8 feet tall. Not knowing how accurate you could be with weight, I'm gonna guess he was 600 or 700 pounds, no problem. Possibly a lot more than that. My dad and myself decided enough was enough. We packed up the camp, got in the truck, and we left. We decided the scavengers would clean up that bear. We made a minimal effort to find out where the Sasquatch they walked off to, but we found nothing. We couldn't even find decent tracks. The ground was too hard. We drove 16 hours to get home, and we must have talked about it 15 of the 16 hours. We both pretty much agreed people are going to think we're nuts. We did stop by a ranger station on the way off to the mountain, and we told him what happened. And there was a dead bear up there, and he said, "That's all right, one bear wouldn't be missed." The only other comment he would make was that was a lot of strange things these days up there, and he wouldn't comment about. He left me with the impression that he knew exactly what was going on. I went home with a firm conviction and belief that Bigfoot was trying to save my dad. He'd be hard-pressed to convince me otherwise. Well, Steve, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Keep up the good work. You're a good, honest man. There are a lot of people out here that have a lot of respect for you. All right, man. Thanks for your kind words, and thank you for that absolutely frickin' crazy experience. Holy shit. Where was that again? California. So that was a black bear. It's hard to say what the hell is going on there. You know, I wasn't there. You know as well as I do. There's going to be a bunch of people shaking their head going, "Yeah, right." But I don't have time for the "yeah, rights" anymore. I only have time to learn. And I know for 100% fact for me, the only way I'm going to learn today is through all of you, and not the people who control the so-called knowledge outlets, right? The internet, the news. It's not going to happen. We're not going to learn shit from there, only from each other, and that's it. So, a black bear about to pounce on your dad in California. Obviously it happens. It's happened lots in British Columbia. Lots of people have been attacked. Lots of people have been killed by black bears, young and old and not so old. Human beings of all ages, sizes, weights, and shapes have all been killed by black bears. So there's no denying that there's a possibility of black bears about to pounce on your dad. Or he's just curious about your camp. Who knows? Could have been coming for the cooler. Who knows? But the fact that frickin' Sasquatch possibly potentially got a hold of that thing and it wasn't making a sound, just squirming, like it wasn't wheezing and squealing and having a frickin' anxiety attack, which anybody would. What an amazing, amazing experience. And the park ranger, game warden, whatever it was, knows exactly what you're talking about. No doubt. Not a frickin' doubt. All right. Let's get some more voices heard, and you make sure you email us again if you hear of any other knowledge that you think will help the people here, all right? And I hope that helped you getting that shit off your chest. Oh my God, this damn phone, I'll tell you what. All right. Mark this as read. Thanks, Steve and Sarah, for the time and work you put into this round table of truth. As I write this, you were stranded in the piney woods in the cold, no way home, frozen toes, and you say, "Oh well, kudos, bud. I'm the kind of person that would be right there with you if I could." Well, this would be written to me back when I was stranded, when the floods wiped out all of our highways. I know everyone who watches this channel, except for the douchebags, know they wouldn't make a pimple on your ass. I'll appreciate the time and effort it takes to run this channel. Thank you so much. Amen. This is what I've discovered over my 64 years of studying everything that I could find, as well as mine and others' experiences in putting together the puzzle pieces, the meaning of life. We are eternal. We are a spirit that stands beside the Creator, and our spirit has a soul that it sends into a human avatar body at the moment of conception. In fact, science has seen this spark, and they have found out that the soul has weight. As the body dies, it becomes lighter. The purpose of entering the avatar is to have the human experience and to learn how to crawl, stand, walk, and eventually run free. Fact. Most other beings on this plane of existence can stand, walk, and run almost as soon as they are birthed. Not so man, ape, and Bigfoot. It takes months. We did not inherit this ability from our parents, as most all other animals do. So we're designed to inhabit, to learn to control and experience life till the end of the avatar's lifespan. Then the soul retreats to the spirit once again and returns to another avatar eventually. But there are/were beings on this plane of existence that have dumbed us down since the time our avatars were constructed. Yes, constructed. The human body has over 4,000 gene splices. All other animals don't. I believe we were constructed by splicing different genomes from animals and quite possibly from the races who made us. Thus, we are one genome from apes, and we have the same mitochondrial female DNA as the Bigfoot you see. They don't copy us, we copy them. Their footprints from hundreds of thousands of years ago prove they are the original inhabitants of this planet. And the churches and billionaire bankers don't want us to know this because it would blow the lid off the pot they have kept us in. We are designed for one purpose, and that was to be a slave race, from mining for the gold. Thus, the fascination for gold. From underground places like lower Central Africa, aka the cradle of mankind, for the race or races that designed us. We were abandoned by our makers as soon as they heard what they needed. Most of all, the indigenous peoples believed that their people came from the ground or the stars. So our souls are trapped here as dumbed-down slaves, not knowing the truth of our existence. Until now, our souls have retained enough knowledge from past lives. People have proved that this is possible, and by communicating with our spirits, and we have retained enough knowledge to recognize what has been going on, and now are battling the bad forces that have been using us as slaves, food rituals, etc. And they are scared shitless. They were fighting for their very existence. There's been one long war from start to finish, aka since we were made. As soon as people start to realize and figure this out, the sooner we can throw off the shackles and move on to the golden times. Those who know me from my childhood know that I never did fit in with my peers, and I was and still am a lone wolf and an empath. I ask questions since my childhood like, why do we have to slave away every day just to give our earnings to someone out there who runs the world, who's in charge? And being told, it's always been this way, go play. Why do we have a war cry every 20 years or so, and why do people get away with making viruses and accidentally losing them upon the world? Yet the same people also have the very cure for it. Population control. You say they want to bring down the population to 5 billion so they can control the herd. Yes, herd. That's what they call us. Yes, they do, unfortunately. As far as the existence of the soul, I know this from personal experience. I know it to be true. I've had my soul leave my body and have viewed my body from soul's perspective. And when the soul leaves the avatar, aka body, your body cannot move. You may be able to see if your soul is still attached to your body by a long, wispy, white cotton candy effect cord. This happened to me several times, and I'm still here. So if you want to hear more, let me know. William Devon, aka Papa Smurf. Papa Smurf, I want to know more. You know more, I want to know more. All right? You sound pretty confident in your message. I want to know more. So send me more, and I'll read it, and I'll share it if you want me to share it. This next one is titled, A Missing Piece to Your Puzzle. All right, here we go. Hi Steve, just happened to come across this earlier today and immediately thought of you and every person who has claimed they felt like someone was watching them. This topic below is quite the rabbit hole, but in a nutshell, it has to do with the existing in the state of consciousness, followed by subconsciousness, and eventually quantum consciousness. I believe these beings are masters at existing in a quantum conscious state. We, however, are conditioned 24/7 to only live in the vulnerable state of consciousness. Couldn't think of a synonym for consciousness. Have a good day, Steve. Keep up the great work. If you ever find yourself in New Jersey, you want to have a few beers with us, let me know. All right, here we go. Before I joined the Marine Corps, I had a family friend who was a Navy SEAL, and he used to teach me some really cool shit. He is the one who told me to go jarhead. I listened. He taught me how to read knife draws and when to disarm and things like the 21-foot rule. One thing he told me stuck with me. He said, when you're approaching someone from behind, like in a sentry takedown, you should never look directly at the person that you were sneaking up on, only to look down towards the back of their feet. He explained that if you did, they could feel it and turn around. This amazed me. I thought about all the times I snuck up on people and at the last second they turned around. I asked him why, and he said that they don't know exactly, but it's 100% true. He explained that you feel like someone is watching you, that they are. He also said that I would learn the same thing in the Corps, and he was correct. In the fleet, we did learn close combat skills. The instructors repeated what he had told me years before. We all asked, why? Why? Explain that to us, please. They said they couldn't. but it is a known fact and to treat it as such. I just wanted to share this story with you, all because this guy's finally explained what I've wondered for all these years. Interesting that the US government has known it for decades. You're welcome. I think we all know that by now too, don't we? A lot of us do. But Mike, thank you very much for that share. Appreciate it. A lot of people possibly didn't have a clue about that before you shared it with us here today. It's definitely a fact. 110%. It's a fact. Here we go. Here's another one. Beyond Comprehension is the title of this one. Steve, thanks for all you do. I just listened to the video about the young man who served 2 tours in Afghanistan and was scared shitless when he and his wife had their encounter. This is just my take on people/vets being scared worse than they ever have been. As you say, we've been dumbed down by our upbringing to not believe in many things, led away from the truths that surround us, all of us. The Sabbath is beyond comprehension, and I think this is why people are so frightened when they have an encounter with the Sabbath. To think that something so large can exist does not register in our brains. How can this exist? The gray matter just has nothing to show in relationship to what the eyes have just seen. We can imagine another man or woman holding a gun and facing off with us in war or in the criminal world that we live in. Yet, Sabbath is not the norm. War is always present and so is crime. This we can reconcile in our mind. But Sabbath? Just my thoughts. I have not had an experience yet, nor do I truly want one. I have believed since I was 10 years old. I'm 54 now. I just lived 30 miles from Story, Indiana, where the 2 men had a Sabbath throwing large slabs of stone at them on the highway. And less than that from a friend of mine who had her late husband see one on their property. And she still has the footprint cast that he made. Take care, use my name, Adam Wall, Spencer, Indiana. Stay frosty. Adam, you stay frosty too, my man. Thank you very much for sending that in. Appreciate it. So many. I'm feeling a little done still. Still sick, but I'm not dying. So let's keep this shit going. There's a lot of misinformation being spewed around. Well, let's hopefully the phone battery lasts long enough for this one. All right, here's another one. Hey Steve, it's Jim from Utica again. Please allow me to post this follow-up report to an email that you read last year entitled 7 Adirondack. It drives people crazy when I pronounce that wrong. It's kind of comical to me now. I came across this sketch, Adirondack Bigfoot sightings. I came across this sketch on a Google search recently and thought that somewhat resembles. I need to go feed some animals. And those guys think they need to be with me still. Start this again. Hi Steve, it's Jim from Utica again. Okay, I came across this sketch on Google search recently and thought that somewhat resembles the assumed to be swimming Sasquatch in my posting. Recall that this was in the early 90s during the summertime, and that was a long time ago, but I'll always remember its face. The face of the creature was brown hair and light tan or light gray face. I think it was a he. It was maybe 1992. I would have been in the mid-20s and often did solo trips into the northern parts of New York State for long weekends. This trip, I was hiking, camping, and fishing in the Wolf Lake State Forest near Edwards, New York, which is very remote and from an area with many other Bigfoot sightings. What I first took to be a very large beaver swimming across the lake from west to east, the more I looked at this thing, the more I was confused by what I was seeing. It looked a lot like Flash the Sloth from the movie Zootopia. Because all I could see was his face as it moved across the water. The face was into the sun, so I saw it clearly from about 200 yards away while it swam from one side of the lake to the other and towards me. It swam fast, even faster than a beaver, and seemed to be doing the breaststroke like a man. I only saw its face and shoulder tops, and it looked to be a young animal of some sort. I only saw it for about 5 seconds before it was lost from my view by the trees. I puzzled for many years as to what that thing might have been. It wasn't a bear, too brown and no snout, and it wasn't a beaver, too big and too fast. It wasn't a deer, no ears on top. What the hell was it? I postulated burning my brain. I postulated burning my brain. Finally, many years later, I saw a picture of a reported Bigfoot, and I've included that sketch for your review and for the viewers to see also. There are two-legged, smaller than Sasquatch. There are two-legged, smaller than a Sasquatch, sloth-like creatures reported in and around the forests of New York and New England. So it may have been something other than a Sasquatch, but it seems to be the best category to put it into for now. Take care and thanks for the outlet to vent. Cheers, Jim. That's definitely a different type of... I got the camera focused here. Maybe I'll try it. I don't have to forget about it on the thing. Get the focus here. That is definitely not anything typical of what we have shared with us, is it? It's a little different, Jim. All right, Jim, if you, same old, you heard me say it a million times already. If you come across any information that you feel will help the people, then get it into me, all right? And I mean any information. At this point, I don't give a shit what the topic is. We are only gonna get information from the people. That's it, we are the people, all right? Get it into me. Anybody out there has some very serious information that the people need, you get it to me. Please. All right, mark this next one as read. The title is, I was within 5 feet of one. Hi, and thanks for having an open and honest conversation about the unknown. My name is Renee. Renee, R-E-E-N-I-E. You can share that. I'm a woman, hike a lot, usually alone and unarmed. I've had many experiences that cannot be easily explained, or at all. The first began in the summer of 2017. My dog and I hiked 4 miles into the forested mountains on the backside of a mountain, which was itself 10 miles up from the highway, so we were a good bit of wilderness. In a good bit of wilderness. I've grown up in the wild and mountains my whole life, so I'm very accustomed to the wildlife as I thought I knew it. The night turned very windy, howling through the trees. There were small branches and pine cones hitting the ground around us, but nothing threatening. After setting up the tent and dinner done, we were both very tired and fell asleep shortly after dark and slept like babies for hours. I awoke to the sound of extreme silence, a very strange sound that seemed as though someone had taken a large branch and smacked it against a tree, approximately 40 to 50 feet from behind and to the right of my head/tent, in an area that is down a steep hill. This sound was repeated within what seemed just a few seconds. At this time, approximately the same distance, but toward my feet and to the right of the tent again, so that I could tell that it was coming from the ridge that dropped to the right along the south side of the tent. Sugar jumped from where she was lying between my feet and began staring at the tent wall to the right. I should add that she was quite at home in the woods and will chase after deer and such. And just seconds after the second knocking sound, I heard very heavy footprints stomping next to the tent within just a couple feet. Sugar was staring up at the height of the 9 to 10 feet, straight through the tent, as though it had a window, and she was staring into something's face. She was trembling so fiercely, her eyes peeled back in extreme fright. Along with this scene, there was the strongest odor, similar to a skunk that might have been sprayed about 10 other skunks. After this thing stood beside the tent a moment, it began walking. It seemed on 2 feet, around the foot of her tent to the other side, with such heavy stomping that made the ground and us shake, but it seemed as though it was simply walking that caused this. As it walked around slowly, Sugar followed its path, continuing to stare up at a very tall angle. Okay, there's something to take mention of. Isn't that kind of peculiar? The canine's looking up to where the central nervous system would probably be on whatever it was, right? It's looking up there, it's not looking at its toes. is concentrated on its mind, or possibly its eyes, or whatever, at the top of the being, without seeing it. That's interesting to me. I had my whistle and buck knife handy, but was so busy trying to comfort my poor petrified dog, and it didn't seem to be a threat, especially as it continued to walk off down the trail. I checked later to find that this happened around 2 a.m. Second event. I began my PCT hike the summer of 2020. I started 20 miles below California-Oregon border, and my first night on the trail in the evening hours around 7 o'clock, I was closing up the tent for the night, having been hiking hard all day and was very tired, calling it an early night. I'd been forced to set up early due to a storm threatening, building from 3 in the afternoon on by 5 on this evening. I'm reading a little awkward, aren't I? I wonder why. Let me try that again. I've been forced to set up early due to a storm threatening. Okay, the comma's in the wrong spot. Building from, sorry, one more time. I'd been forced to set up early due to a storm threatening. Building from 3 in the afternoon on. There we go, I got it. By 5 on this evening, the electricity in the air turned to thunder and lightning. I kept my tent fly open to watch the ferocity of the winds on the ridge just about 50 to 75 yards away. As it began zipping up the tent, I looked uphill of the open meadow. I could see at the top of the meadow a set of about 3 trees, and I would guess them to be 12 to 15 feet tall. There, standing beside these trees, would look like something mostly black with its arm hanging onto the trunk of the tree about 3/4 of the way up. Whatever this was appeared to have a gray head and seemed to be studying me from afar. It stood stock still, from a distance of probably 1 to 1.5 football fields. My mind couldn't fathom what it was seeing, and since it stood there unmoving and unfrozen, unfazed by the storm, I dismissed it as a burned-out, blackened tree with a weathered gray top to it. In the morning, I looked at the trees again and saw nothing but the group of pine trees. As the trail led to that area, I closely inspected the area on my way out. Nothing. No burned out trees there or beyond to explain what it could have been. A few days later, I camped near a stream, set up a tent. Still a couple days hike from the nearest bit of civilization, but only a few miles from where that first experience happened. The night camping with my dog. Needing to use the ladies' room, I walked 20 feet behind my tent to a large tree. It was dusk, but I could see clearly. There was a grassy opening that stretched before me that was roughly 1/4 of a football field. So, imagine me on the sidelines with a forest of trees to the right of me, approximately 10 feet away, and a row of forest that began again at my left, approximately 40 yards away. As soon as I stepped into this open area, or on the sideline of this grassy field, I heard the sound like a bird that had a call of 4 birds mixed together. It sounded like when a person imitates a bird, but then mixed in about 4 different bird calls together. Almost immediately afterward, from the tree line to my right and roughly 50 feet in front of me, I heard the strangest whispering noise, as if overhearing 2 people having a conversation that you cannot make out what they are saying. The weird feeling of being watched and the fact that they were alerting each other to my presence made it hard to relax and sleep that night. The next day I dreaded hiking to the spot of the first encounter, but had to face it. It felt ominous, but nothing happened there. It wasn't until later that evening that I had the most profound experience yet. Before I get to that, I'll share a couple more interesting finds. A few miles north on a popular lake, I came across tons of barefoot prints along the side of the trail. The prints ranged from massive to small childlike. The massive six-toed ones had a very large distance between the right and left print. I took a video of it and measured my trekking pole at full length between the toe and 1 foot to the heel with the next step. My pole extended full length is 54 inches. Try walking that pattern. No, it didn't look like a bear print. I know what they look like. No, it didn't look like someone running to be able to make a long stride. A side note is that there was a dead bunny in the middle of the trail without a mark on it or any blood. Another couple events happened this fall, 2021, in the Cascade Mountains of Oregon. A girl pal of mine and I went hiking in to camp by a lake. First off, we noticed that there was tons of barefoot prints all along and around this mini lake. Mind you, we were in the middle of a bloody nowhere, and it was cold. The prints were a bit larger than our prints, and there were small child-sized ones with it. After walking around the lake, we sat at the lakeshore, 20 feet from our tents. Several times our dogs were spooked by something cracking in the woods across the lake to our left about 100 yards. In the middle of the night, and several times in the night, we were awakened by the loudest owl hoots known to man. And that wouldn't be weird, except that it came from a ways back from the lake on the far side of the lake. So this is approximately a quarter mile away, and it sounded like an impression of an owl and in a yelling fashion. At one time, we heard a loud hoot that seemed to have a growl tone to the end of it, then a massive tree knock that sounded so loud, but still being so far away. Each of us heard the footprints along the trail to the right of us, 15 to 20 feet from the tent, about 5 a.m. Our dogs went into a whining frenzy, twirling in circles in each of our tents. The footsteps were heavy thuds, yet there were no signs we could see of it in the morning. However, there were new bare footprints in the dirt about 20 feet to the left of our tents, in the area we were sitting the evening before. They had not been there before. I've been back twice, seeing the barefoot prints each time, along with the elk and wolf, and took castings this last time in a very severely frosty morning. I was alone this last trip in October, awake most of the night, hearing the strange owl calls, but no tree knocks this time. Now for the most incredible and difficult to describe. All right, here we go. And you came to the right place to do this. I was hiking a 14-mile day, coming to the last few miles in the pitch black night, starting around 9 p.m., as singing loudly as to warn any critters that I was around. I saw a very large old tree straight ahead, frightened the wits out of me until I recognized what it was. I began singing as loud as I could to make myself feel better, if nothing else. What happened next seemed to happen at once, but as I'm describing it, to get it into sequence, it may seem different. Keep in mind I was hauling butt to get off trail and get to where I was camping for the night, at a nearby lodge, only another quarter mile to the highway and then another 1 mile from there. As I came to part of the trail turning a 90-degree right turn, I heard an alarmed tone/screech of that crazy mix of 3 to 4 calls from less than 10 feet away, as I was fast-paced hiking right toward it. The dirt was kicked up as whatever it was had jumped off the trail into the right side of the trail. As I came to that spot, I heard directly beside and to my left the sound of that whispered conversation, just as I had the night before, about 20 miles back. I was frozen to my spot as my headlamp shone on the one that had done the screeching and jumped. The large amount of dust kicked up impeded a great look at it, but the outline was unmistakable. I've since seen a picture of a great ape hunched over, attached, and have to say it looked so much the same, only the shoulders were more pronounced. This thing seemed to be half hunched, 5 feet from me, ready to leave or launch. It wasn't standing up, but still was massive. If I had to guess, I'd say it was 6 to 7 feet, and that it was in its hunched position. It appeared to be just as afraid of me as I was of it, and felt I was trying to decide if I was a threat or not. I calmly repeated out loud, "It's okay, I'm leaving, just passing through." With my eyes still on it, I kept on going down the trail, backing up slowly and away. Within a few seconds, I heard what sounded like a person give a hoot owl impression from the top of the hill above to my right. This hoot sound continued along my side, never more or less than about 40 feet away, but I couldn't hear any steps or branches crunching, even though it had to have been going right through the forest. As I finally came to where the trail met the highway, I was looking it the last 1 mile to a lodge. I was booking it to the last 1 mile to a lodge. At the top of a hill about 25 feet high and overlooking the highway I was on, I heard a final hoot, as if shouted in last warning to stay away. I wished I'd look up, for it felt like it was standing there looking down on me, but the fear was too much and I'd already seen enough. One thing I feel impressed to share is that it didn't seem violent. It seemed frightened of me and could have attacked and hurt me if it or they wanted to. I've not known what to do with my experiences, but I knew I wanted to find someone more trusting and less hoaxy than the popular TV shows. Another interesting thing, and I've seen / heard evidence enough to form theories. Number 1, they hunt on the trail, either side of it, waiting for game to come along. Number 2, have poor hearing, since I was very loud and they were not warned off till I was right up on them. Number 3, they have a language of imitating sounds. I think the sounds of humans holding a conversation is their way of stating or naming what I was. They leave us alone. Number 4, they leave us alone unless we completely get in their space. Number 5, are more nearby than we think. Masters of hiding in plain sight. Anyway, there's more about this. There's more, but that's the main bit. Sorry, it's been a bit of a novel, but wanted to get the details in there. Take good care, Renee. I hope that's Renee, R-E-E. I suck at pronouncing shit sometimes, don't I? There's a photo. This seems to be working. I'll do it this way, all right? Less editing time. So there is what she said it was similar to, right? Similar to. She didn't say it was like it, had more pronounced shoulders than this being right here. But anyway. All right, so sounds like if I was mistaken, you said that you took videotape of the footprints in the stride. That'd be interesting. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be screaming, "Where's the video?" So if you want to share that video with the people, you can share it through me. If not, that's fine. I'm good. But I'll guarantee you somebody's going to want to have a look at it. And good for you to keep going back out there after all those things you've seen, especially that gray topped one. Many people wouldn't go back there and go camping alone. And you're brave. And be safe out there, all right? Be safe out there when you go out there. Send us more. If you got more, send us more too, please. Excuse me. This is titled Bigfoot. Where to begin? Background. I was raised by my stepdad, who was an alcoholic in Ironton, Missouri. So I was outside all I could be. He was an Army sniper and drank his trauma away daily. We moved there in '81 when I was about 3. The bobcat almost ate me in the front yard. Excuse me. And our Irish setter saved me. Dad had lots of guns, so we killed it with a 10 gauge and a 22 Magnum. I found his cave some 50 yards from the house, 35 pounds. My dad drilled me a lot, hiking at night with no light. Stealthy walking, splashless creek walking, silently swimming, splashless rowing, flinchless shooting, etc. When I got all my bullets in the same hole, he finally let me hunt with a camera. I became a successful hunter and took to bow hunting. So fast forward, I have a Shawnee buddy I hunt with in Oregon who dropped me off on a water hole. I'm dialed in, covered in elk piss, wind in my face, ready. Something keeps squeaking the trees, knocking. But when I check my 6, I never spot anything. I see no wildlife for the whole time. I stay too dark and go to the trail. I'm on the trail, which is 25 yards behind where I was, when I smell it. It smelled like a barn full of old shit and piss, like vomiting strong. And the sound is coming from there. It's epping me up mentally. So I stalk down the trail and get away toward the truck. It followed me. Even after my buddy finally came, I had a feeling I was going to be hit or pulled off the quad. So the next day I go in the morning by myself toward the spot and come to some water and a meadow when I hear a combination, so I try to stalk it. Thought it was a wounded bear. It left no tracks, but I couldn't keep up. Even sprinted to cut it off, but I couldn't catch it. I went back the same road a little farther that afternoon. I came to a path like the size of a sidewalk into the forest. No ruts, tire marks, or tracks on this path, but it was worn down. About 100 yards in there was a big tree across. I could go under easily, but it was all unbroken on the bottom of the tree. It was like a 7 foot up to go over, but it was clear whatever took this trail went over. Well, I broke some branches and walked under. I started to see a stream along the trail and got a feeling of being not alone. I suddenly just wanted to make it out alive. I have chicken skin now telling you. I don't care where the trail went. I want it out. I repressed this experience and stopped hunting. Well, holy shit. Moved to Hawaii, and a guy told me about a Bigfoot he saw as a kid in New York. said it was visible when the lightning struck 3 times, coming at him, standing over him, and jumping / strolling over a creek in 1 step. He said it was holding a whitetail buck in its hand like a rag doll. He said it smelled like shit, death, and beer. He later heard that hunters near there had their bucks stolen and all their beers smashed. When he got back, he was told those are the mountain people and to leave them alone. This is the only time I've told anyone. Thanks for doing what you do, Steve, and I hope to get back in the woods of North America again once I get armor I can bow hunt in. LOL. Till then, I'll be in Hawaii watching your stuff. Love the bear hunt stories. I'm developing a shake for the rest of the hunt. And for those who don't believe, I can't, don't, and won't lie. Aloha, John Couch. All right, John. Thanks for that, man. You know what? There's a whole pile of hunting opportunities in Hawaii. I'm sure you're aware of that. Was it wild goats, feral wild goats, wild boar? And if there's a Sika deer, Sika or what are those deer called with spots on them? They got those forked antlers. I think they're in Texas. Exotic species, as those are there. I think there's black-tailed deer there, apparently. So why don't you try taking baby steps out there? Some open land there too. I've seen some videos on it. And it's more open out there. You don't feel as, which would tend to not give you as much anxiety as it would going into the big timber like it is around here, right? But it'd be great if you get back out there. It's funny how many people don't understand the terror that changes people's complete views on anything when it comes to going into the forest anywhere, right? I know I've heard people say they don't like any trees anywhere. They don't like to see any group or cluster of trees anywhere. It bothers them, causes them anxiety. The chicken skin effect, right? But anyway, going back in. I'm about froze out here. The sun's going down. It's getting freezing cold. Sarah just went into town and she said that every single bank had massive lineups of people trying to get in the bank and get their money out. I tell you, there's some amazing shit going on in my broken country. It's a weird feeling, and it makes me sympathize so much more with so many of the world's refugees who are forced to leave their country to find a happier, safer place to be. Stories of them trying to get their money out, get out of the country. It's so bizarre the shit's going down in Canada. Just so freaking bizarre. But anyway, I urge all you to be and stay smart. Just be smart, all right? Be smart. I mean, I wish I could have handled myself a lot smarter leading up to this point. You know, I definitely rallied the enthusiasm to expose the lies and the bullshit coming down the pipe from our government. I definitely did a complete job doing that, but I also put a target on my back doing that as well. Is what it is. But I do have substantial reach, which does make me a target, especially my stance against my current government. So, whatever. I'm not scared of them. I'm not scared of death. And when you're not scared of death, it makes you, I don't know what it makes you. Does it make you, it definitely gives you more confidence. It makes it harder to be pushed around, for sure. But anyway, I'll save that topic for later. Maybe this evening I'll be able to get a Rumble video put together for all of you so I can share exactly what's going on. Maybe I should share it here in this channel, I don't know. Some real amazing times going on right now in our countries, around the world, especially if you have members of your government who are a member of the World Economic Forum. That seems to be ground zero for where all this grief is coming from. That's a fact. Do your due diligence. Stay smart, you guys, all right? Stay smart. Don't be dumb, all right? Don't go swinging your dick and showing your power that you may have at home. Anything, all right? Now you're playing poker, so do not show your cards to anyone, all right? Just be smart. Don't share too much with the wrong people. Find your people and maintain being smart, okay? I'll be back shortly.